Good evening and welcome to another edition of Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. My name is Austin Brubaker. I am excited for this show today because we have a little bit of a different show to be able to present to you today. It's just going to be me on the show today because I just released one of my newest articles for Dodgers Daily. And we're going to be going over that in detail. And then after we go through that in detail, we can kind of talk through some of the main takeaways that we have from the article, as well as how this actually is going to apply for the Dodgers in free agency, because there was a lot of research that I've been doing. And I kind of sprinkled that in to you guys as far as this was going to be coming up at some point. Something was going to break. I'd been working on some stuff. Well, that is finally released, and we're going to be going over the latest article that I have for Dodgers Daily. As you can see with the title of the video, are the Los Angeles Dodgers efficient or reckless spenders? A study of the Andrew Friedman era, part 1. We're going to be going through this in detail, what I did do in my research, what I didn't do as part of the research that I did, what are some of the ways that we can improve this research going forward. But it's going to be a great overview as far as free agency and contract extensions in particular for the Dodgers versus all other major league organizations. Is it actually true that the Los Angeles Dodgers are better at these than every single other organization? Are the Dodgers actually exceeding, or are they just throwing money out there, and it is because they're throwing money out there that they are starting to win and starting to win championships? We're going to be going over that in detail. Those were the questions that I was trying to address with the research that I have, and we have a lot of information and a lot of data to be able to go through. I'm going to give you guys the resources that you need to, and we're going to be having a really good time in the chat as well. We'll also be taking some questions towards the end of the show, whether this is about the article or whether this is about some of the rumors that you guys are hearing in the world of the Los Angeles Dodgers and the offseason. So thank you very much for joining us. CNAV, Christopher Navarro, Jeffrey Graham as well, and Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Thank you for joining us. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a little bit of the article. We're going to do it primarily of some of the posts that I put on X. I think that's going to be probably the best way to be able to do this instead of going through the entire article. The link to the article is in the description of this video. It's also posted at the top of the chat. It's the pinned comment at the top of the chat. You can have access to the article. You can read through it yourself. I also have the Excel link file listed in the description of the video, so you can actually go through all of the different data and research. As been pointed out in the past when I've done these types of shows or done shows just in general, I utilize that quite a bit to be able to go through a lot of my research. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to go through the X post, and we're actually going to break this down, what I've been researching, what are some of the things that I've been looking at recently. So we're going to go ahead and cut this over right here. This is the latest article. It is available at dodgersdaily.net. It is available in the comment section of the video. I also posted my article on Substack. There's a little bit of an issue with some of the quality of some of the pictures, so I posted it there as well. So the primary question that I'm trying to answer with this: are the Dodgers efficient at spending the money that they actually spend? Or are they just throwing money out there just to acquire as much talent as they possibly can? And this comes from a very real question and concern from a lot of the baseball world. Look, it is no secret outside of the world of baseball, or outside the world of the Los Angeles Dodgers in the Major League Baseball community, that the Dodgers get a lot of crap for the amount of money that they spend. Now, we can ignore that, and I think that's fair to ignore a lot of that stuff, but it's also right to point out that there is at least some sort of validity that the Dodgers spend more money than everybody else. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be directly looking at the Andrew Friedman era. Andrew Friedman took over baseball operations, I believe, at the end of 2014. So what we're going to be looking at specifically is 2015 through 2025, the Andrew Friedman era. And I think there is at least some sort of validity that we can put to the Dodgers spending more money than anybody else. And this has come especially recently. Here are some of the numbers for the contracts and the free agent contracts and the contract extensions that I have as part of my research. So It is no secret that the Dodgers have made large investments in free agency and contract extensions during the Andrew Friedman era. They have made at least $3.26 billion in commitments to free agents and contract extensions in the Andrew Friedman era. This includes contracts like the Shohei Ohtani contract, if you're taking it at face value of the 10-year, $700 million contract. It includes the Yoshinobu Yamamoto large contract. It includes the large extension for Mookie Betts, $300+ million. It includes the Blake Snell deal. It includes the Tyler Glasnow large extension. There have been massive investments that this organization has made financially. And this is something where they're doing it to a degree much higher than the rest of the league. As I point out right here, this is at least or around $500 million more than the second highest team in their commitment. They are spending and committing more money than any other team, and it is by a fairly decent degree. The second place team is the New York Mets, heavily aided by the Juan Soto 15-year, $765 million contract that Juan Soto signed last offseason. In addition, the $3.26 billion in contract commitments that I have in the Andrew Friedman era for free agency and contract extensions, this is at least 2 times the amount committed over 24 other big league clubs. I think the ones that aren't included are the Mets, the Padres, the Phillies, the Yankees, and there's 1 or 2 other teams that are listed in the article. The Dodgers invest heavily in their players. They invest heavily in free agents, and with a couple of the contract extensions that they have signed with certain players, whether this is players that come up through their system or whether this is they go out and trade for somebody and sign them to a contract extension a la Mookie Betts, a la Tyler Glasnow. They have made massive financial commitments to their roster. And you could argue this is a lot more than other clubs, which it absolutely is a lot more than other clubs. But this is something that the Dodgers have strategically done, and it has led to, during the Andrew Friedman era, every single year them making the postseason. 3 World Series championships during this run, even more World Series appearances. They have invested heavily in their club to make sure it is as good as it possibly can be. But there is a difference between spending money and spending money efficiently. There are a lot of teams that spend a lot of money, but not all of these teams can go out and actually spend the money efficiently to be able to produce a team that is good as it possibly can be. So the question is for the Dodgers, and perhaps this is something that we assume that the Dodgers are efficient at going out and spending money. I think that is often what it is the take, is the Dodgers have signed superstar talented players. They've gone out and acquired those star power players to be able to help elevate them to a World Series championship. But we don't really have a good system to be able to track just how efficient they actually are at doing this. How do they compare to teams across the league, not just with the World Series championships, but how do they do with the actual money and contracts that they give out? Are they being efficient? Is the model actually working out underneath the hood for the Dodgers to be able to go out and not just win World Series championships, but get the most out of every single dollar that they spent? That is the big question. So, and then scrolling down with this, with the post that I have, with all of this investment, one can derive a necessary and important question, which is the one we're continuing to wrestle with. Do the Dodgers recklessly throw money around to acquire talent, or are they efficient with the dollars they spent? That was the question that I'm trying to address, and this is how we're going to go ahead and do this. And we're going to talk through a little bit of detail with this. I believe I misspelled efficiency. I was pretty mad at myself when I posted this and realized I misspelled efficiency, but we'll just go ahead and ignore that. Here are going to be some of the measurements for the analysis that I have, and we're going to be going through each one of these in detail. This is going to be very detailed in this show. That's going to get some really good parts, so please pay attention. But I have to go through each one of these particulars that I have in order to provide consistency. Now, each one of these is not going to be a perfect measurement or perfect indication to making these analysis as good as it possibly can be. What I'm trying to do is be able to establish some sort of initial process, at least right now, for us to be able to go out and analyze this, as well as providing a consistent measurement for each one of these. For contract measurements, contract extensions, deferrals, and luxury tax, how that is analyzed, different WAR measurements and monetary value, what is the expected WAR we're going to be talking about, and efficiency of contracts commitment. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pull up these pictures right now. It's going to have a lot of detail in here. As you can see, there's a whole lot that is posted in this picture, but it's going to provide a lot of important detail that we have. I'm not going to go through each one of these different details, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to describe this as briefly as it possibly can. For the contract measurements, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be looking at free agent contracts and contract extensions that start anywhere between the year 2015 and 2025. If they are from, for example, a free agent gets a contract 2014 to 2018, they are not included because the contract does not start in the year 2015 or later. 2015 to 2025 is the contract start date that we're going to be looking at. In addition, I put a little bit of limitations because I want to look at team specific. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to punish a particular team if a player moves on to another organization. And a player that you can use as an example of this is Rafael Devers. Rafael Devers was traded from the Boston Red Sox to the San Francisco Giants in his second year of his long extension that he signed with Boston. Now, it's not fair to punish Boston for the remaining portion of his contract because he's not going to be earning any sort of value for Boston. He already was traded as part of that. What I did to be able to remedy this, which this is not a perfect way to be able to do it, but I think it was the best and easiest way for me to do it, at least for right now, is I only included the years in which they were part of the particular organization under which they were actually under their contract. So, for example, Rafael Devers and his 2-year contract, or his I don't know how many year contract extension, 10-year or 7-year, however long it is, contract extension that he signed with Boston. What is included is the year 2024 and the year that he was traded, 2025. Boston would be on hook for 2024 and full 2025 value. Now, you might make an argument, why isn't that a year and a half the monetary value? That's a good question. That is just the way that I decided to utilize contract measurements for this. If they are traded, still the value of the contract for the original team that he was on, for the contract that he had signed, remains part of that team. Just a little bit of clarification of what we have. In addition, the actual value of the contract is just the face value of the contract. This is going to be often at least not a perfect measurement for how valuable the team is actually getting. For example, with Shohei Ohtani, there's a difference between what the contract value on paper is, 10 years for $700 million, versus the actual real life value in which the Dodgers are investing, which is closer to a luxury tax payment of about $46 million, is essentially what the Dodgers are doing. However, as you're going to notice down here, I did not count the luxury tax payment for this specific analysis. I just used the actual overall contract detail in full. So the 10 years, $700 million, because that is the contract on paper, I do not have the time to be able to go through and figure out what the luxury tax actual payment is for each one of the players, because there's a lot of players on this list. And so what I just did with the face monetary value of the contract, that is what we're going to be utilizing. Perhaps this is undervaluing certain players like Shohei Ohtani, which it absolutely is in this analysis. But I think that is fair as long as you're consistent with it. And I didn't want to handpick the Dodgers and look at their situation and not fully understand the situation of every single other organization. That's contract measurements, that's deferrals and luxury tax. What about contract extensions? Contract extensions were included if they took at least 1 year of free agency for the club. If that was the case, if it included at least 1 year of free agency in the initial terms of the contract extension, then that contract extension was kept as long as they did not sign another contract extension during that temporary time period. What didn't count though, for example, is players that were in the arbitration process. and then signed a 2-year deal that kept it within the arbitration process. Like, for example, the deal that Alex Vesia had, where he signed a 1-year deal with a club option during his second year of arbitration. This year is his final year of arbitration in which the club option is picked up. That does not take into any account of the free agency process or take any free agency years off of it, so they were not included. A lot of detail. I apologize for all this detail, but it's important that we go over this just to make sure that we're all on the same page. In addition, what we're going to be looking at when it comes to measurement of how valuable a player is, we're going to be looking at Fangraphs WAR. Fangraphs WAR I like a little bit better based off of some of the underlying metrics of what it uses as opposed to Baseball Reference WAR. That's what we're going to be doing. Now, typically, if we go across the industry of the baseball world, typically a value for a baseball contract, just WAR-wise, and this is very general, this is very generic. Perhaps this isn't the adapted case overall, but typically the amount of money that you want to spend, especially on free agency for WAR, is anywhere between $8 and $10 million. That is what is seen as as around the value for a win above replacement. In this case, we're using Fangraphs WAR. What I did is I decided to use a consistent basis of WAR as far as $9 million equals 1 WAR. Now, this is true, or this is what I'm going to be using as a measurement for the values for both free agency and contract extensions. Perhaps this is not a fair evaluation because contract extensions can include some of the early years of free agency, in which case you would expect them to be under pre-arbitration or arbitration type deals. Might not be the most fair analysis. This is what we're going to use as far as consistency, at least for this basis, and then we can go back and reevaluate this from here. In addition, this is another potential criticism of this, we're going to keep the same WAR value 2015 through 2025 at $9 million. This was something that I very heavily debated as far as whether we should make that increase over time. At this point, we're just going to keep it at $9 million per WAR. And what we can use from that is we have the Fangraphs WAR, how much they actually were able to produce, how much value they were able to produce. We can use the $9 million per WAR calculation and actually get an expected WAR or an expected Fangraphs WAR. And how this is going to work, and this is going to be the crux of the analysis, is we're going to look at an individual player's contract. And we're going to say, based on however much money they are paid, this is how much wins above replacement you are expected to get during that contract. So, for example, if a player signed a 1-year, $18 million contract under the measurement that I'm setting, which is $9 million per WAR, the expected value that you would get from that player is 2 WAR. Meaning if a player underperforms that and only gets 1.5 WAR, they would be underperforming what the contract is actually giving out. Or if they only produce 1 WAR, they would be underperforming the $18 million for 1 year that they would be giving out. Or, for example, they posted a 5 WAR. They would be overperforming by a certain measurement of the dollars that you actually give out. Which means that if you want to get overperformance, you want to go out and actually spend money to try to get some of the overperformance, or at least get some of the years allotted. And if what that also is going to come with additional risk, because for players that have higher contracts, there's going to be a higher bar for them to be able to overcome in order to reach the deal. And then the efficiency of contract, this is kind of what I was going into right here. What we're going to be looking at is actual WAR, actual wins above replacement, minus the expected wins above replacement, or what you're going to notice, FWAR minus XFWAR. Actual minus expected. And this is going to be our main measurement of what we're going to use to be able to analyze the contracts of each one of these players. Again, a lot of detail, a lot of particulars, but these particulars are essential to actually understanding what this analysis is actually doing. So we have players, how valuable a player is, what their actual contract is, both free agency and contract extensions. We also have a conversion to be able to see how much they should have earned wins above replacement wise versus what their actual results are. That is the consistency of what we're going to be doing for this analysis. So let's actually go ahead and start answering the question after we do this main measure analysis. Again, Fangraphs WAR minus expected Fangraphs WAR. Are the Dodgers efficient or reckless spenders with both free agencies and contract extensions? Let's take a little bit of a look at this before we actually show the full picture. In free agency 2015 to 2025, in my research, the Dodgers have signed 63 players through free agency and 15 players through contract extensions. With these numbers, the Los Angeles Dodgers have received the highest FWAR in all of Major League Baseball with an FWAR of 207.3. Something roughly close to that. Again, some of these players, perhaps it's possible that I missed a couple of players. Actually, it's probably likely that I could have missed a couple of these players. But the Dodgers were the highest at getting the most amount of WAR, which you could take into account with what we stated earlier, that the Dodgers spend the most amount of money, so you would anticipate them to get the most WAR back on the dollars that they were able to invest. So how do they do efficiency-wise? The Los Angeles Dodgers, when you look at both free agents and contract extensions, were 5th in Major League Baseball in contract efficiency. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to look at these standings really quick. We'll go ahead and back this up right here. So what you have is every single organization, the teams that are listed on the side right here. We also have the Dodgers, which are highlighted in yellow, and which we're going to look over here. 63 free agent signings for the Dodgers, 15 contract extensions. This is the amount of money that they have invested. And what you're going to notice is the Los Angeles Dodgers got 207.3 Fangraphs WAR during the time period 2015 to 2025. And with the money that they have invested, they have been expected to earn 181.4 wins above replacement, which gets you into the positive of 25.9 Fangraphs WAR minus their expected. They're about 26 WAR. Dodgers, with the amount of money that they spend, it's very high bar for them to be able to achieve. It's 181.4 wins above replacement to just give above 0 in order for free agents and contract extensions above the money that they're actually investing. And the Dodgers have passed that bar and been one of the better teams in Major League Baseball. Let's break it down a little bit further into just free agency and contract extensions. Free agency 2015 to 2025, the Dodgers, like they had in both combined, have received the highest Fangraphs wins above replacement in free agency. When they go out and get free agents, because of the amount of money that they have spent in free agency, they have accrued the highest Fangraphs WAR, 120.7. In addition, the Dodgers are 6th in Major League Baseball in contract efficiency. Again, looking at the exact same figures, we're going to look at this table right here. We'll go ahead and zoom this back out if we can go ahead and do that. Again, this is where the Dodgers rank contract efficiency. You're going to notice that a lot of these other teams don't spend quite as much as the Dodgers do in free agency. Tampa Bay, who is efficient at going out and getting free agents, only has spent about $236 million in free agency over the past 11 off seasons. Texas, who had one amazing offseason in which they got Corey Seager and Marcus Semien and a lot of other players, they have been above water in particular because of them, but they still have spent about $1 billion less than what the Dodgers have in free agency. Pittsburgh has hardly spent money in free agency, and yet they've overperformed because they don't really spend a whole lot of money. San Diego hasn't spent quite as much money in free agency. They're a little bit more contract extension type of team. And then Milwaukee are the only teams that the Dodgers are behind. What you're going to notice is the Dodgers, the money that they spent in free agency has gotten them a little bit above water, 1.8 WAR above what was expected of them based off the money that they've actually spent. What you're going to notice, and this is something we're going to talk about a little bit later, a lot of teams in free agency do not do well based off of what they are expected to do. A lot of teams are in the blue. Again, with this, red in this picture is good. Blue is not so good. And there's a lot of teams in free agency that are more in the blue than they are in the red. Let's go and look at contract extensions because you're going to notice a little bit of a difference in story. Contract extensions in the Andrew Friedman era. In the Andrew Friedman era, the Los Angeles Dodgers have received the 4th highest Fangraphs wins above replacement at 86.6. In this, the Los Angeles Dodgers with contract extensions are 8th in Major League Baseball at contract efficiency. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at this rankings. That might seem a little bit low, but let's look at what the numbers are actually showing for us. So they're behind Cleveland, Atlanta, Seattle, Tampa Bay. Those teams should be familiar because they were at the top of the list above the Dodgers when it came to efficiency when in both the when you include both free agents and contract extensions, but also above the Dodgers in efficiency, Arizona, White Sox, and the Marlins. What you're going to notice, there's a pretty vast difference between what the Dodgers spend and what a lot of other teams spend on contract extensions. The Dodgers spending 2 times more than most of the other teams above them. The only exclusion to that is Atlanta, which has some really positive contracts like Acuna and like Ozzie Albies, 2 massive team-friendly type deals. But what you're going to notice about this is the Dodgers have accrued 86.6 Fangraphs wins above replacement versus the 62.5 expected Fangraphs above replacement. They still very much are in the positive for what they have achieved, 24.1, better than what was expected of them during contract extensions. And what you're going to notice is most of the teams are in the red, which means that signing players to contract extensions actually is a really good investment for a lot of teams to be able to make. Again, this does include some pre-arbitration or arbitration type deals. You can take that with whatever bias that you have going into it. In addition, what we're going to do is we're going to look to see how the Dodgers have done by offseason. So you remember a lot of fun off seasons, particularly the 2024 offseason is what it was a really exciting venture for the Dodgers. How have the Dodgers actually done when it comes to contract extensions by year? How efficient have they actually been? I don't know why it's going and putting some arrows and stuff. There's going to be some things that's going to be blocked with this, but this is some of the data by the Dodgers by year. You can see 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, so on and so forth. The number of free agents, the number of contract extensions, as well as how much they have invested by year. You're going to notice very heavily into the later years, particularly in 2024. There was heavy investment by the Dodgers in 2024. And what you're also going to notice is it's mostly positive years for the Dodgers in efficiency, except for last year. Last year, the Dodgers were expected to get 16.7 Fangraphs wins above replacement based on the measurement that I have and the contracts that they gave out. They only got 6 Fangraphs wins above replacement for the players. This was the offseason with Blake Snell, who did not pitch as much during the regular season, which is eating into some of this value. This was a Teoscar Hernandez contract extension. This was contract through free agency. This was the Tanner Scott deal that did not warrant much. This was the Michael Conforto offseason. This was the Tommy Edman extension offseason. It has not bared out well for the Dodgers thus far, but for an overall standpoint, the Dodgers have been really good and efficient at the money that they have spent through free agency and through contract extensions. Let's go back, continue to go through this. Here are going to be all of the different free agents and contract extensions that have been through the Andrew Friedman era. I'll just roll through these quickly. Just so you guys can go ahead and see all the different ones that we have. So we have 2015, not as many, but then we got 2016, the Scott Kazmir contract, the Kenta Maeda contract extension, Kenley Jansen signing him, Justin Turner, Chase Utley is part of this mix. 2019, you can see some of the other players. Clayton Kershaw signed a contract extension. Muncy, Mookie Betts signing him to a contract extension going forward. And where some of the monetary value, Freddie Freeman has massively paid off as a contract 2023, not as many long-term investments, specifically because 2024's offseason was absolutely incredible for the Dodgers. Ohtani, Yamamoto, Will Smith, Glasnow, Muncy, all getting deals in that good Teoscar Hernandez type of deal. And so what you have for the Dodgers is, and what we're continuing to look at with this, again, are the Dodgers efficient at going out and spending money and going out and signing players to long-term deals and contract extensions. So we're going to continue on with this thought and process. Los Angeles Dodgers as a whole have been heavy spenders and efficient, consistently ranking towards the top of the league in both. Again, with just free agents, it was 6th in Major League Baseball. Contract extensions, it was 8th. Both incredibly high bars to reach because the Dodgers continue to invest massively, which means that they, in order to be able to go and be above water, their players have to overperform, and that is exactly what the Dodgers players have done, and that is massive testament to the work of Andrew Friedman, the entire front office, and the players that actually go out there and perform on the field. It is consistent excellency that the Dodgers have got. Now, what I want to do is look at some overall trends, because this is where it's actually going to apply when it comes to free agency, contract extensions, and what to do going forward if you're the Dodgers. So what we're gonna notice, and this is something that if you notice, the overall free agency is not the most efficient way to acquire production, meaning the amount of money that you spend on free agents often doesn't bear out with the monetary value that you are spending and getting in return. So the conversion that we used is $9 million per WAR that you are acquiring. For the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Dodgers have been good at investing with that. However, they are one of the few teams that actually gets positive value back from the Fangraphs value that you spend out. 23 of 30 major league clubs had a negative Fangraphs WAR minus the expected Fangraphs WAR in free agency, meaning the money that they spent out was not as efficient as they were anticipating. Going out and spending $100 million was not the greatest deal for a lot of these teams. In addition, only 38% of all players who signed free agent deals had a positive value, meaning they met up to the contract that they had signed through free agency. Only 38% of those players, and only 28% of players who sign a $50 to $100 million contract in free agency met up with the contract of what they were supposed to get. Meaning that a lot of players that are signing these mid-market type of deals, the $50 to $100 million, good players, really good players, but when they sign those type of deals, a lot of those players do not meet up with the level of what they're supposed to based on the money that the team is investing in those players. Free agency is not the most efficient way to be able to go out and spend money, which could be why there is some hesitation for some teams to go out and spend money in free agency, because it's not quite as efficient as other methods and means. We'll go over that in just a second. Next takeaway that I have from this, contract extensions, especially when identifying young talent, is well worth the cost for teams. Now, this is taking into account that teams are buying up years of arbitration or pre-arbitration, which very well is a biased indicator because those players would not be quite making up as much money as they have. However, this was a consistent trend that I saw over and over again, and this was very apparent for a lot of different clubs. 25 of 30 major league clubs had a positive Fangraphs WAR, actual WAR, minus their expected WAR on contract extensions, meaning contract extensions are very much well worth the investment that you are making as an organization. In addition, as opposed to below 40% of players through free agency meeting up with what their contract is actually owed, about 61% of players who signed contract extensions had a positive actual WAR minus their expected WAR. Contract extensions are a good way to be able to keep young talent in your organization, or just keep talent in general, because this is not exclusive to young talent. Again, player like a Mookie Betts signing his contract extension with the Dodgers after he was traded with the Boston Red Sox, that counts as a contract extension. Tyler Glasnow's deal counts as a contract extension. Signing these players, especially players that you have identified, getting them locked up long term is a good, efficient way at doing so. In addition, and I think this is a really big takeaway for the Dodgers because, and this is going to be something that's going to be very evident when we look at some of these graphs, spending money does not correlate with efficiency. Meaning, just because you go out and spend money does not mean that you are going to get the value that you got back in return on your deal. However, spending money helps elevate the floor of the production that you are going to achieve. And that is what the Dodgers are doing. It's not just that they're going out and spending the money efficiently, which we've already stated that they are in comparison to other teams, but it is that they are helping raise the floor pretty dramatically by the amount of money that they are investing. So what I want to do to showcase this is with two different graphs right here. The first one that we're going to be looking at is the total money that is owed by an organization and the amount of Fangraphs WAR minus the expected Fangraphs WAR by a team. And what you're going to notice, each one of these blue dots is a organization. There actually is a little bit of a negative trend right there. And it basically is nothing. There's really no correlation at all. The R squared value is basically zero for the amount of money that is owed by a team versus what the difference between the actual and expected WAR results. However, when you take into account, and perhaps this is a little bit counterintuitive, the total money that is owed through free agency and the amount of Fangraphs WAR that is spent, there absolutely is a positive correlation, positive trend with this. Meaning, as I go back to the statement that I have, just because you spend money does not mean you're going to spend it efficiently. However, it really helps raise the floor of production of what you're able to produce. And perhaps this is a little bit skewed because this is only taking into account the actual players that are signed under the free agents and contract signings. However, I think there is some truth behind it, and I think we can all recognize that signing players to some sort of long-term deal, signing players to deals, really does help elevate the floor of your team. The Dodgers have helped elevate the floor, and they have gone out and spent the money well and wisely. So that's a lot of the research of what I have. What we're going to do is we're going to just cut over to a little bit of bonus for you, just because this is a little bit of fun stuff that I was able to get. Here are, for the past 11 years, free agents and contract extensions. Here are some of the best contracts that have been given out. And what you're going to notice, most of these contract extensions. Mike Trout's contract extension from 2015, which was 4 years, $76 million, vastly overestimated that. Jose Ramirez is on here twice for the Cleveland. Corey Kluber, Ronald Acuna Jr., Max Scherzer's free agent contract. That's the best free agent contract in terms of overperformance. But what you'll also notice, Freddie Freeman's on this list. Kenta Maeda, his contract extensions on this list, and Mookie Betts is on this list. Shohei Ohtani is not currently on this list, although he very well could earn his way on the list. Part of the reason he's not on the list is because the fullness of his $70 million per year contract is part of the list. You can see the Dodgers have 3 of the top 30 contracts over the past 11 years of free agency and contract extensions. In addition, here are the worst contracts that have been given out, and which you'll notice the Dodgers are not part of this list. The worst contracts include Steven Strasburg's free agent contract that he signed with Washington, just didn't really pitch for them. 0 Fangraphs WAR. He was expected during this tenure, based off the $245 million owed, to get about 27 Fangraphs WAR. He didn't get any, so that's a negative 27.2 value. In addition, we have Miguel Cabrera, Chris Davis, Anthony Rendon, Chris Bryant being among the worst contracts given out. That's just a little bit of fun bonus stuff based off the list that we have. Just scrolling through any final thoughts that we have. Again, a lot of this research was done with SpotRack and with Fangraphs. I put a link to each one of those in the article, so be sure to check them out. In addition, I also gave you guys access to the actual Excel sheets that we have. So, for example, this is the Excel sheet for the free agents and contract extensions. You can go through and look at the Los Angeles Dodgers and all the different free agents and contract extensions that they have signed through the course of the year, as well as their Fangraphs WAR, their expected Fangraphs WAR. You can do that if you're not a Dodgers fan, but you're a fan of another team. You can do that with each and every single team. All of their values during the Andrew Friedman era are there, as well as overall rankings. If you go through additional rankings, you can go through, look at individual off seasons, how they ranked, how individual off seasons ranked by year. Fangraphs WAR have they done by organizations. You can also look since a certain year. So, for example, how have the Dodgers done since 2020? The Dodgers, since 2020, again, ranked 5th in baseball at contract efficiency. There's a lot of different stuff that you can look throughout that Excel sheet. Highly encourage you guys to be able to do so, because what's really unique and cool about this is with this tool that we have, this is not just it feels like the Dodgers do well, or I know the Dodgers have done well because they've signed this superstar player. They have Shohei Ohtani, they have Mookie Betts, but especially when it comes to different arguments or perhaps just statements made about the Dodgers, I think there is some truth behind what people are saying in the sense that the Dodgers spend a lot of money. Of course, the Los Angeles Dodgers spend a lot of money, but do they do it efficiently? That was the goal of this exercise. That was what I was trying to figure out. And I think it is a pretty resounding answer that the Dodgers pretty consistently go out and spend money efficiently at what they do. And that is great news for the organization, because when you spend efficiently, that can, and especially when you have a high floor, which the Dodgers have the highest floor in baseball with the amount of money that they are investing in this club. When you combine a very high floor with great efficiency, that is going to lead to sustained success for your organization. You add in the player development aspect, which very much is part of the equation. If you're a fan of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and if you're a fan here at Dodgers Daily, you'll notice the farm system very much is an important aspect of the piece that we have, because all of these different measures have to be there. It can't just be go out and spend money. It is go out and spend the right money. Go out and spend money wisely. And I think that is what the Los Angeles Dodgers have done. They have spent wisely. They have spent efficiently with what they have. They've also spent a whole lot of money, which, yes, you could say that not all of the deals that they have signed have worked out, including last year. Last year was not a great crop for free agency. Again, we had already talked about a vast majority of the players that they had signed to longer-term deals had underperformed. Blake Snell underperformed only because he wasn't available a whole lot. Tanner Scott dramatically underperformed. Teo underperformed quite a bit. Blake Trinan, remember, 2 years, $22 million. He underperformed last year. Michael Conforto, obviously. Kirby Yates, obviously. A lot of players underperformed last year, but on a typical basis for the Dodgers, under the Andrew Friedman era, they have done a good job with free agency. Even though free agency is not the most efficient way to go out and spend money. So, it is up to the Dodgers right now to look at their situation that they are in and figure out what they have to do to spend the right amount of money. Because we've talked about it on past shows. There are different players that they could go out and get. They could go out and sign a Kyle Tucker and fix the outfield situation. They could go out and sign a Cody Bellinger to try to help fix the outfield situation. But are those players going to be not just a fix for this year, but is it going to be an efficient contract, or is this going to be something that's going to hurt the organization? Now, the Dodgers can take a lot more blows than the other organizations. A lot of teams, like, for example, the Tigers, who are one of my favorite clubs, they went out and made some poor choices during the mid-2010s. For example, two of the worst contracts on the list are the Miguel Cabrera contract extension and the Victor Martinez 4-year contract, as well as some other contracts that are part of the bottom of the list that really helped derail their club overall because they made poor financial choices there and because they did not invest in the farm system. The Dodgers have to take that at least with a little bit of a warning sign and go out and spend the right players. So it's not just about going out and spending money. It is spending money well, it is spending money efficiently, and it is spending money for the exact right type of players. That is the goal for the Andrew Friedman era. That is the goal for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And that is how you build a sustained winner. And that is how the Dodgers have gone out there and won World Series championships during this era. It's a huge credit to Andrew Friedman, the Los Angeles Dodgers, for what they've been able to do, because it is extraordinary. That is an overview of what I have in my analysis. Highly encourage you guys to dive into it again further for yourself, be able to read through the article. What we're going to do now is we're just going to enjoy some time in the chat to be able to go either break down this analysis, or if there's additional rumors and stuff that you want me to break down, we can go ahead and talk through that. But highly encourage you guys, again, go out, read the article, explore the Excel sheet on your own to be able to dive into this. Let's do into this. Craig Osterberg, good to see you. Bob Student 10, thank you for tuning in as well. This is Breakdown of Love. Numbers. That's exactly right. Chuck Huddleston, thank you for joining us. Al Minerva, Austin, you could use AI to help you calculate the contract numbers. I very well could try to do that. The trick with some of this stuff is with how precise I want to make it. I don't know how precise AI is at this individual point in being able to pull all this stuff to the exact degree of what I'm looking like, but certainly I can look at some sort of tools to be able to try to figure that out. Chuck Huddleston, got my hotel reservation and tickets for 5 spring training games. Can't wait to get to Camelback. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to be something that I'll be able to figure out as well, or if I'll be able to go as well. Hopefully the mic isn't doing too many issues and stuff right now, but we'll figure it out. V-Tracks in the chat. Cameron, thank you very much for joining us. Leaned on those former loons to pick up the free agent slack. That's absolutely right. Appreciate you. Hopefully you are there tomorrow for the big event that is going to be happening. CNAV, Christopher Navarro, what spring training dates did you pick? Talking to Chris, or trying to Chuck Huddleston. So we'll see what sort of spring training games. If you're going to spring training, be sure to let me know as well. Let's see, get down to a couple of these. Craig Osterberg, get Scooble, starting pitchers don't grow on trees. Yeah, that was something that we addressed a little bit during the show yesterday. Not yesterday, it was the show on Tuesday. Casey and I went through, talked a little bit about the Scooble type of deal. I don't know if this is going to be something that the Tigers are going to be actually going out and pursuing pursuing a trade for Tarek Skubal, but if it is something that could be available for the Dodgers, if they are able to figure out some of the other issues as well. For example, I think the need to add another offensive piece is more important than bringing in a Skubal, because you already have great pitchers as part of your team. But if they can figure out a way to potentially do both, as well as add additional pieces to the bullpen, Skubal is absolutely phenomenal. And being able to add as much talent to your organization as you possibly can very well could be a pursuit, and wise pursuit for the Dodgers, even if it seems like an overabundance of talent that they're going out and actually getting. Let's see. And then Craig Osterberg says, any deal would be good for Skubal. And CNAV, I want to go to spring training, but not during the World Baseball Classic. And great show for this as well. Yeah, I think it's a little bit more limited as far as the crowd we're going to have, because this isn't a rumor type mill show, but I think it is so important to be able to do this research and actually get numbers to what we're doing and look into what the Dodgers are actually doing. Are they good at what they're doing? Evaluate the whole scale approach of the Dodgers and see, is their approach actually working? And I think when you dig beneath the surface, even if this isn't the exact perfect analysis that you could do, but once you dig beneath the surface a little bit, I think what you're going to find out is the Dodgers do things incredibly well. And what this is going to be is this also going to be just part one of a study of the Andrew Friedman era. There is going to be additional analysis that we're going to be doing. Perhaps we're going to do some modifications if appropriate, and if I get some additional suggestions on how to modify it, perhaps can utilize some tools in order to be able to fix some of the analysis. But I want to go ahead and try to present you guys with a fair case and fair study of the Andrew Friedman era and to try to provide you guys with as much tools as you possibly can to actually see is the team doing what it can and doing things well to be able to build a winner for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think that's going to be it. Fairly short show during the show today because it was mostly just going over the article that I had written. I can't thank you guys enough for the support that you guys have for me and for this channel. We will be back fairly shortly. I believe there's going to be a show with me and Mark at the very least on Saturday. I don't know what additional shows we're going to be having throughout the course of the week. We'll be talking more into rumors. We're going to be talking more into Dodgers offseason. But it's going to be more than that. We want to present our absolute best to each one of you guys, which means diving in and doing things that we can't find or that we don't believe have ever been done. I don't believe that this article has ever been written about the Dodgers to the degree that it actually is written and to the analysis that it is with as much detail as it has. And I want to present that to you guys because I think you guys deserve the absolute best. You guys are absolutely amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. That's going to do it for here. Dodgers Dogs is part of the Dodgers Daily Network. My name is Austin Brubaker. Again, check out the article. It's in the description. We will be back to talk about the Los Angeles Dodgers and Dodgers baseball with you sometime soon. Until next time, thank you for tuning in. God bless and go Dodgers.